Hey people, CzarThwomp here, and welcome to episode 11 of The Greatest Attorney 2 Resolve. Last time, we did a dance of deduction to determine why Shamspear, this tenant of this room, was killed. And we determined that Soseki was in the room with him, and he was presumably poisoned with tea. And then we got Soseki arrested inadvertently, only to find out a little later on that basically the victim Shamspear wasn't dead at all. And now we are going to address this. I have to stretch over to get my iPad. And now I'm getting caught on my chair. What was that? I already read that. Sorry. I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shamspear, came back to life. The man had indeed been poisoned. It transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. of February, Briar Road.
Whatever do you think will happen now?
Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume, arrested for murder, but the victim comes back to life.
I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems that very likely that Mr. Shamspear did consume poison, as we deduce. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder?
Well, if he was trying really into Shakespeare plays, then basically the second one is very possible.
Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so.
Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings.
Is something wrong, Mr. Naruto?
Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah! He just ran off.
I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it?
I do too, but I don't remember. Okay, let's examine stuff. London's blanketed in fog again today, and the sky is covered in cloud. But if you look carefully in the distance, you can just make out the Crystal Tower being built.
Ah, the Crystal Tower. Yes, the centerpiece of the great exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time.
Everyone's talking about the great exhibition of London at the moment, it seems.
Well, it's to be the largest event of its kind anywhere in the world, with technology and scientists from all over. I can't wait for it myself.
Do you think visiting students in the Far East like us will be granted entry?
The last great exhibition that was held in London had more than 6 million visitors, it seems. And this time, the British are determined to make it an even bigger success, to outdo the Paris Exposition.
I see. That's an incredible number of people.
And with so many people expected to attend,
we should be able to easily slip out unnoticed. Except, of course, if Van Zeeks is by the entrance. He will guard that entrance with everything and do everything in his power to keep Ryuunosuke, Susato, and Natsume out. To keep them away from his world fair.
There's always the honest approach of buying tickets at the main entrance, Mr. Naruto.
Okay, let's just check around. What can we check out? Okay, why has someone built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think?
They worship the snowman. That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruto. That's part of the snowman's body.
Really? But it already has a perfectly good body.
Well, it's true that the British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner.
And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man. I know how he feels.
If anything, it's Japanese and British 2-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people do have 3 sections: heads, torso, and legs.
Do you ever think that perhaps do you think about things too much? Okay. Daily News. Rants Magazine. Where's Rants Magazine? Okay, anything over here? The alleyway. Okay, let's check out the bike.
There's always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrideb residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact.
That one seems very warped, though, especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think?
No, I'm afraid that may be a result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider must have been similarly affected.
Then there's a good chance Mr. Natsume may have been practicing on this bicycle, I think.
Oh dear, I fear you may be right.
Okay, Soap. With the exception of the top floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb live, the windows are bricked up.
Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows a property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows.
But the tax has been since abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could be all opened up again, surely.
Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done.
Yes, that is a sad state of affairs.
Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have lived all cooped up in a windowless room.
I suppose that's the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation.
It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that.
Okay. Let's look at the door. The Garrideb household and Mr. Natsume's lodgings are in a prominent position here on the corner. Sometimes when I look at this building, I can't help feeling that it's a bit of a slant.
It does rather look as though it would collapse in even the smallest earthquake, doesn't it?
And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Saseki-san has such a hunched back. Okay. Let's move out. Okay. The Garrideb's room. Let's earn the ire of Garrideb. It's first 21st of February. The Garrideb's room. Here we are again. The eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode.
We're here because Mr. Garrideb's the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget.
Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garrideb as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all the business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning.
I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened to Mr. Garrideb.
Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap on the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? Present the armband. Remind him of what we've done to him. Mr. Garrideb, can I show you this? Been quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. I'm afraid I'm rather tired. I haven't really got the energy in the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time, then. Okay. Examine your stuff.
Oh, a copy of Rand's magazine. He has been brought over to the home side. The Adventure of Herlock Sholmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful?
Naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. But having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Mrs. Sato. Perhaps it should be reflected in the stories.
Make no mistake, Mr. Naruto. I intend to snuff out that sort of public opinion we just heard personally.
And then Susato just grabs Garrideb by the arm and just yeets him out of the window. I swear, basically, I wouldn't be surprised if years down the road, Susato became Iris's heavy. Anytime Iris wants someone to disappear, Susato makes it happen. Susato makes sure that no one can stand up against Iris and Sherlock. I'm starting to see where Mr. Sholmes' untainted reputation comes from now. Iris kills them. Susato kills them all. The cannon. There's a single apron drawing on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse, though.
No, Mr. Naruto, that's a real cannon.
I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. It couldn't stop your wife. What makes you think it'll stop anyone else? Is there a war going on that I don't know about? You saw the war. You were part of it. You saw it in Ryuunosuke.
That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garrideb?
Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not an active service now, you know. Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it.
Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs.
Very tactful, Miss Susato. Very tactful indeed. Okay, the shells. Ah, yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something seeing them up close, isn't it?
Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garrideb?
Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing those on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, one has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my little mishaps on display.
Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments?
The medal. Good to see Mr. Garrideb's Medal of Honor so proudly displayed on the wall. It's been 2 days, Ryuunosuke.
The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember.
Yes, I remember, because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know to look at me now, perhaps, but I had a devil-may-care days, you know? Devil-may-care, what did you get up to? Well, it's on the best now, of course, and it's best left there. Best not, I want to know now. Can't expect the fire. We know that what that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now.
Oh dear, this must be a very difficult situation for you.
I'll say, people talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half, a rotten show all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. Yes, let's check out this wrecked situation. These shells look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Maywan, don't you know? Ah, the experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy has surrounded on all sides. Thought we were done for. The whole Bali company. We were taking a real pounding from their cannon, so all we could do was run for our lives. Oh, I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. Okay, good. Hopefully that did not cause any real massive issues. Okay, I'm gonna have to check this right afterwards. Oh my gosh. Yeah, basically what happened was I moved my hand down and it unplugged my microphone from the computer. Okay, but from the look of it, I am getting readings. I am getting my readings. Okay, good. Phew. I swear, this is what happens when I have to sit on an ottoman when basically my controller's charging. Ugh, that's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. Okay, let's see what that history was saying. When you're done for, you're really done for. And when basically I lose my microphone connection, I am really done for. Okay. Let's do this. Check out the pastries. That's an impressive collection of cakes on that fancy silver cake stand over there.
I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated here as well.
Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know.
Oh,
Time has stood still. Now that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying up the office.
You'd forget to tidy up the office, Naruto, and I will be upset. Ryuunosuke, and I will be upset. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruto.
Like I said, I swear, I wouldn't be surprised if just Susato watches Phoenix from the afterlife and she just cries whenever she sees the Anything Agency. She just cries when she sees just the mess that has become of Phoenix's office with all the magic props. Susato, her ghost, she doesn't haunt Phoenix, she cleans the office. Susato is the only thing that's keeping the Anything Agency from just being consumed by Trucy's magical props. Yeah, basically Susato, she visits Trucy in her sleep.
Why do you do this to me? Why do you hurt me, Trucy? Daddy, why is great-great-great-grandma harassing me in my dreams?
Okay, the window of doom. There's a good view over the winery East End from up here. It's an impressively gray scene. There's really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below, Briar Road, partially blanketed in snow.
And the pavement where poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife.
Think about it, this is the only room in this building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it?
I suppose all foreign cultures seem strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel on arriving in Japan seeing the people with a cone-managed top knot.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, basically, Ouchie sees them, basically, he's staring at him in shock.
Yes, behold! They are amazed by my presence! They want to hear about how I destroyed my enemies with my T-pose of dominance!
Okay. Let us converse. This morning's incident. It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. At 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer.
And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door.
Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour.
That's very true, Mr. Naruto. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning!
Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Susato basically has stopped doing that every morning. Well, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden?
Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door.
Mr. Shamspear. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspear, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspear took the ground floor room 3 months ago now.
And how would you describe him?
In a word, destitute.
Destitute?
Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Saseki-san would fall into. My guess is that screw loose would probably be the closer one.
Mr. Naruto, that's quite rude. Mr. Natsume-san is eccentric.
He was doing research as well. Research into what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays at the old barn myself, Romeo and Hamlet and all that.
Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author.
And meanwhile, Sir Francis Bacon rolls in his grave.
He's known as Sayo in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated.
So wait, does that mean that Shakespeare is technically manga? I am going to consider that Shakespeare best manga ever. Hamlet is best anime protagonist. No. Fortinbras is one of the most powerful characters in anime. Too bad I couldn't add Hamlet. Too bad I couldn't add Fortinbras to my top 10 most powerful anime characters. Oh well, there's always next year when I could basically. There's always some other time I could do it as a Christmas thing. My part 2 to the most powerful anime characters. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sayo, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually. Weren't there?
Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shansphere would have had much in common.
Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Yes, basically, now I'm imagining it happening right now, basically. What? How can you say that Hamlet is more powerful than Fortinbras? Fortinbras gets it done! Oh, but Hamlet was a man of art. He was merciful and gracious. He did not kill Claudius when he knew that Claudius was guilty, because Claudius was at his moment of vulnerability. Fortinbras wouldn't have given him no quarter. Basically, and then Natsume punches Shansphere over that debate. No. They debate about which Shakespeare place is the best. King Lear is the best play! No, The Tempest is clearly better. Ah! Just punch the face. And then Natsume comes out with the pins. Let's see how you deal with King Lear!
Mr. Naruto, really? How rude.
Yesterday's events. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Garrideb noticed that there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shansphere got back, and the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Supposing that his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything all right, Mr. Sato?
Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrideb, you were up here in your room after all this evening, if I've understood correctly.
Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg.
Then, how is it that you seem to know the precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean?
Ah! That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noise on the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking. It's a bully outrage. I'm an ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I?
Then how did you know, Mr. Garrideb?
It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? It activates the voices in my head. What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I more or less worked that out.
Every room in this building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside, and the gas company supplies the gas to properties via the main.
Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain it. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously, the room would get brighter. Exactly, but at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms in the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim?
Perhaps it's all because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it?
Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe.
Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable.
Jolly good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguishing the lamps up here and they glow brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening everywhere. You got it!
Of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires.
Unless they fear the dark. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. Okay, let me just take that down. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrideb. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh, well, nothing to it, really. And I can't really see that's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrideb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again.
A good idea.
Okay, I think now would be a good time to end things off. I really appreciate that you stuck around to watch this episode. You're a great viewer, and I hope you come back for the next one. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, share, do as they want. But I'll see you next time. Bye.